We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
We are going to talk about tariffs. Essentially, tech companies have declined to comment or refuse to say anything at all. The industry groups, however, are speaking up.
Well, it's a shame you don't like to talk about it, Cole. Ralph, friends who want to stay friends don't discuss religion or politics.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk tariffs, the ISC ramping up, and multi-room audio. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 469, Tariffs. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek, your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by my two New York, New Jersey buds. First, we have Mr. Mark Feinberg. He's the president of Home Theater Advisors in the city. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on again. I really love joining the show.
It's a blast.
You're such a kiss butt, man.
Right?
Yes, I do.
But I appreciate it. It's
maybe if I'm nice, he'll invite me on more.
So that guy right there is Mr. Todd Puma. He's the president of the Source Home Theater. Does a lot of work in New York, but is based in Jersey. How you doing, buddy?
Doing really well. Actually, I left New York City recently.
I know you did.
Yeah, only in New York.
You're not working at all in there?
Well, Mark's in New York. I was just like, can't take it anymore.
All right, I understand. It happens. I haven't been in New York to the city in, like 10 years.
I don't think you want to be there. So keep staying out of it.
My wife's planning a trip, so we're gonna pop in.
Come on, we'll go to Peter Luger's.
Well, that's not New York City. That's a safer place. Yeah,
it's Brooklyn. It's
safer there.
All right. Let's before we dive down into that fun one, we'll hit one that's way safer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the story you have waited for us to cover since 3 days ago, Saturday.
Yeah.
Since an hour ago.
We are going to talk about tariffs. And we're going to loosely reference a story in The Verge. Big tech has been silent on Trump's tariffs. Essentially, tech companies have declined to comment or refuse to say anything at all. The industry groups, however, are speaking up. If you were somehow under a rock and you have no idea, on the 1st, Trump announced a tariff for goods coming from Mexico and from Canada of 25% on top of an additional, I believe, 10% on energy coming out of Canada, which is going to be awesome for my economy. Then Canada, in its infinite wisdom and unelected government, as I'm doing my best to get censored today, they issued a 25% counter tariff that, again, will do wonders for my economy. Mark, let me start with you. These technically went into effect. No one knows. I'm shipping stuff to the States today commercially, and it's been an utter disaster trying to figure out what the heck they want now, bringing things in. Mexico supposedly rescinded or did some stuff. They got it paused for a couple of days. Long and short, we have no clue what this actually is going to do, mean, or affect us. What is the approach that we as integrators should do if this comes up with a customer based on pricing, quoting, availability? Do we just kind of shrug and say, yeah, we don't know? What's your approach?
I mean, right now, my biggest priority has been reaching out to clients who we've got accepted proposals for, we haven't ordered product for yet, because we have a price out there and, maybe we're in the pre-wire phase and it's not time to order product. So my priority has really been to reach out to those clients and see if we can pull orders to now and get them in before our vendors change pricing. So I've had a little bit of success so far. Others are waiting to make that decision, and they're going to get me checks before I'm going to order anything anyways. New proposals and new meetings with clients, I haven't had any yet. There were no consults today. But I think my story will be more along the lines of, if it comes up that, it's we charge the MSRP. So if the price changes, the prices go up because of this price, that's what we're going to have to charge. If our prices are going up, we are too small to eat, 10%. China's 10%, and most, not everything we order is coming from China ultimately. So it's really a 10% price increase. So, that's kind of my story, is going to have to be that it's the reality of the political climate here right now, is that's what the pricing is. If our vendors enacted a price increase, that has to carry through.
Todd, are you approaching this with like fluidity? I had a vendor reach out to me last week and say, due to instability, in their wonderful corporate speak, due to market instability, we are pausing our 30-day price notification, and we will be going to a 7-day price notification as far as changes. Is this something where you just kind of take Mark's approach and say, we don't know, we're going to play it by ear, quote it, but if you don't pay for it today and we don't order it today, your price point might be fluid?
I think it is a good approach. At this point in time, I think it's the best not to overreact, but you also have to be reactive at the same time. I think that Trump is using this as a negotiation tool. He's up to something. He always is. He's a great businessman, better than a president. And, he knows what he's doing. In order to save money, in order to make money back, he definitely knows what to do. Now, is it worth Canada and, Mexico? I'm not worried about as much based upon the goods that come out of it. It's more of China. You don't want to.
That's hurtful.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean it as a
important.
Personal,
come on, man.
My personal journey, as a business. China is where I worry the most about is you don't poke the bear. They basically have all the control. Even though Taiwan has the chips, they still have to sail their boats through China in order to get it over here. And to be honest with you, the political climate between the US and China hasn't been that great. So to sit there and poke them right now might not be a great idea. And with the technology that we're going to be getting from our iPhones, straight through our computers and whatever else we may be getting, like light bulbs now even have chips in them. If you think about it, it's a little worrisome that might happen because, the economy is still shooken up a little bit. We're still trying to figure out how to price, networking, how to price, television, speakers, what the right approach is in order to offer products to the clients and, to also keep things a little more stable. The pandemic brought so much, instability just alone on knowing if you're going to get products. Then we had price gouging from the manufacturers, well, we're only going to do this once, 3%, Snap AV says. I'm not going to say who, but, Snap AV. And they turned around and said, that's it, we're done. Then a couple months later, another 2%, then 8%, 4%. And this happens across the board with many manufacturers. And for myself, constantly going back into the books and changing pricing, that takes up labor, right? That does take up time. And it's happening more often than not. Now we have to also go back to our clients and discuss, political nature of things, which we're not supposed to really be talking about politics. It's an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, it's a dangerous conversation.
It's a very dangerous conversation, but it's exactly what could happen. You talk to one person, well, Trump's doing it. Yeah, go Trump. Then you talk about, well, that's because, they're idiots. Trump's an idiot. And you're just going into a bad, conversation, no matter which way you go, because you have to sit there and nod your head. Now, with that being said, we got to play this out, man. It's definitely, I'm hoping for the best here. I'm hoping our companies, all three of us, don't have to, pivot and adjust. I'm hoping that, we could keep profitable or go more profitable with the new administration. And I'm hoping this is just, one of his, business plays versus a tactical, destruction to the AV market.
Right. And listen, I'll say, if this stops at 10%, we saw 50 to 75% inflationary price increasing, during COVID and all supply chain issues, and it stayed there. And business hasn't suffered much because of that. If it stays at 10%, it's manageable. I don't think it will impact demand. Mm-hmm. But if it becomes 25 or 30 or 40% tariffs, that's going to you're starting to price people out of a lot of things.
Well,
So
networking.
let me ask you guys this. From again, we're all small business owners. What do you guys want to see from your manufacturers, from your partners in communication? Do you want to see anything at this point, or
I'm going for nothing.
I don't think they can. We don't know anything. Political leadership doesn't know anything. Like, there's just nobody knows where everyone's in the same boat. We're just waiting to see what happens.
Well, isn't tonight?
There's the strong arm.
We have the phone.
It goes.
Trump has the call tonight with Canada and Mexico, correct?
Right. But what impacts us mostly is China.
Right.
I mean, except for Matt. Matt's being impacted by and Matt, I'm curious for you, like, how much of your product comes through the U.S. and you'll be hit by this, as most of it hitting Canadian shores directly from China?
Again, it depends where it comes from. A lot of products traditionally would come through Vancouver, right? If they're coming from the Asia Pac, typically it would come through a Vancouver port. That being said, there's a large number of products that come in through, they're essentially distributed through an American vendor or an American entity, right? So I don't want to name anybody, but enter your big loudspeaker company, right? They import from Canada, from Asia into Long Beach, into their US HQ, and then they ship out to Canada.
Paradigm,
right?
So you're gonna be double. So you're
again,
gonna be,
I'm not naming anybody, but even we've got a quote we're doing right now for a House of Worship project with a big custom order projection screen. It comes out of Indiana.
Right.
Our price books haven't been updated. So I'm reaching out this morning saying, hey, I need a freight quote, but I also need to know how long this price is valid for. Because if I give this to the customer today, this is not a one person can sign off on it. This, has to go to committee, all the drama that comes with that type of corporate project. Technically, I should be putting 25 points on that just in case.
Matt, you actually looking at 35 points because you get 10 coming in from Asia to the U.S. and then 25 coming from the U.S. to you.
Exactly. So it's really right now it's a big unknown. The side that I've found quite comical is Canada has always been very big on like multiculturalism and not being, oh my gosh, we're Canadian. It's we're whatever we are and Canadian. And now all of a sudden everyone's putting like made in Canada flags on products, hoping you'll buy those instead of the other ones that may or may not have a tariff on them. So from our end, it's going to be very interesting to watch because again, the wireless microphones we sell, they come through the US. They don't come directly into Canada. The receivers we typically spec for residential, those come in through Vancouver, not a problem. Our in-ceiling speakers and things like that we use in residential come out of Nevada. So who knows? Right. Because again, that company, for example, is trying to be made in America, but they still source a lot of components out of Mexico, out of Asia. Let's just say I'm trying not to price anything right now.
I'm curious, Matt. Could this change how some of your go-to brands? Like you do have some made in Canada brands. Could it change? I mean, made in U.S. brands, it doesn't. To your point, doesn't really matter because the parts come out of Asia and come out of Mexico. So we're going to pay for it one way or the other. But if you can get, there's a great speaker company made in Canada, would you consider shifting loyalties?
Potentially. And again, the issue has always been that a lot of those great Canadian brands are gatekept. They have localized distribution rules. So it's not like everyone and their brother can be that dealer.
Fair.
So it's going to be interesting to see how those manufacturers, if they look at this as an opportunity versus, again, just whining about shipping into the States. They could open their dealer base. And Todd, you mentioned one earlier. They have an opportunity to reach out to literally every dealer, whether it's theirs or not, and say, hey, we're Canadian. You can save 25 points.
Yep.
Like that's what I'm interested in seeing what happens. That all being said, to Todd's point, this could be dropped tomorrow.
Yep.
If whatever conditions are met that Trump's and his team are looking for. Again, I'm not trying to take a position on that. I think the volatility is the big concern. To see how that works, and again, to see how companies in all three countries adjust to try and make this work in their best interests. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
I'm currently just watching my dollar tank.
It's funny because what Mark said is, would you be loyal to the brands that you normally were loyal to? And didn't click until I realized, because I sell Paradigm and Anthem. Those are the two brands. I've been loyal to Paradigm for my lifetime.
Coming out of Canada, brother.
I know. And I didn't think of that.
And they may be able to shift, right? Because that's the other side too. That to use them as an example, and I don't know their inside, how they distribute essentially. They may ship directly into California and then distribute into the US from there. I don't know. It just may be, headquartered in Canada.
Right. I can't remember if they're designed in Canada or made in Canada. I can't remember.
Exactly.
I believe they're made in Canada, but they have something in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But they might be assembled. Like, again, there's all I remember is, and I'll take you back to just a entertaining short story. We had brought on a new LED wall vendor like 10 years ago. And again, it's straight from China, made in China to order, shipped to you. And I was talking to our distributor and they were getting us a freight cost. And I'm reading through like the fine print of the freight quote and saying, hold on, why are they shipping through Long Beach? I'm like, hold on. So I call my vendor and then I get escalated up to essentially the head of that distribution house. And I said to her, I'm like, hey, have you guys ever investigated shipping that LED company through Vancouver? She's like, no, we've never thought of that. They're newish to us. I'm like, it'd be worth a phone call.
Yeah.
She did. Our quote dropped by like $4,000.
Wow.
Because it wasn't going through North America.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't going through the US. It was literally coming into Vancouver, staying there. We're not paying exchange. It was fantastic. And that became their standard operating procedure for that manufacturer. So I think there's a lot of, I think long-term, whether the tariffs are implemented, whether they stay at this rate, however that is, if this forces some companies to do some due diligence and say, for example, my favorite wireless microphone company, you could ship shipments to Canada into Vancouver. They don't need to go through Chicago before they come to me. Just saying, you could do it. It'd save you a lot of headache. It'll be very interesting to watch how all levels of our industry. Let's change topics because everyone's bored of that one by now, I'm sure. This comes to us from CE Pro, ISE 2025, all the latest in AV Pro news and more. It started today-ish? No, tomorrow. I don't know what day it is over there right now. We're recording this on Monday. When you listen to this on Wednesday, it will have started. There's over 1,600 exhibitors in the pro and residential AV space. All right, gentlemen. I have been to ISE multiple times, not in Barcelona. I don't believe either of you ever have. Todd, is there any, do you follow ISE at all? Do you care as somebody who works in, the tri-state area? Does this impact you at all? Is it on your bucket list other than a trip to Barcelona?
Not really. Number one, and I don't like traveling. I don't like flying at all. So it's too far of a flight for me. So it's fair to say that. So would I ever go just alone from that? No. Would I like to? Of course. Who wouldn't want to see, Barcelona? Who wouldn't want to go to the other side of the world and check it out? And also be around your peers is important, But if I wasn't afraid of flying, would I go out there? No, I don't go to CEDIA and it's right here. At this point in time, I'd rather sit on a laptop and watch YouTube videos and educate myself or, do the thing called reading, and read up on the product and then get into my hands and eat the groceries and find out for myself, is this really worth getting or not getting, versus wasting 3 days on talking to other integrators about how great their business is doing or how bad their business is doing, or lie to each other about, the different things that are occurring that aren't really happening in their business. So I'd rather pass on that. But again, I do give kudos to all the people who do go there and who do educate themselves and learn from the experience. I'm sure there's a lot of training out there that you couldn't get, obviously if something is outside the States, like companies that you normally wouldn't deal with. So give them kudos for that. New products coming out, I'm always willing on finding out about them. But again, from the comfort of my seat right here, watching YouTube videos and finding out on residential, finding out on your show what's coming, what's good or not good from the pros.
I'm here for you, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate
All right,
that.
Mark. Todd brought up an interesting point as far as like finding companies that don't exhibit here, because in the handful of shows that I went to at ISE in Amsterdam, that was the big highlight for me. It wasn't seeing, as much as I love seeing the people that I know from, the North American companies, it was finding all these kind of boutique-y European companies that do cool products. They make either a cool widget or great speakers or something interesting. And it allowed us to come back and again, pepper one or two little interesting things into our mix that helped us stand out from competition. And again, just be a little different. Is that enough of a draw to get North American people to come over to these shows in Europe?
I'd be leery. I'm kind of impressed you did it, Matt. I'd be a little leery to bring on a company that doesn't even exhibit at CEDIA. What does that say for their distribution in the States? What does that say for their support in the States? If they, can't come to one, if they're willing to go to ISE but not CEDIA, if they're willing to spend the money on a show, but they're not, but they're not coming to CEDIA, how much are they really investing in their U.S. product or their U.S. distribution? So I don't think I'd really be picking much up there, but maybe I'd see something really cool and it would change my mind. I don't know.
Well, you got to get the bougie side of things, you know what I mean? Where customers love things that are overseas, that are out there and that they can't grab out here. And it tends to be something that they want, especially the more high-end clients. Their design is above none. They're the best of the best about how they approach things, how they look, and also their products do work. So sometimes not having it here makes it a little more intriguing for myself.
Interesting. That's a good perspective. I mean, I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, so I mean, I've not gone. I've heard the big benefit is seeing all the resi and commercial stuff sort of in the same space and being able to compare the two and having it together. I've heard is amazing, and I really wish we could get there here. We haven't. They haven't been able to pull that off. Don't know if they ever will. I've not been to Avixa or any of the commercial shows here either. Yeah. So because I'm 98%, 99% residential, so I don't go to those shows. So yeah, I mean, I don't really follow it. I don't really read up much about ISE. I don't even read the articles about what did I find at ISE, because I'm kind of like, if I care, I'll figure it out when it gets to our shores.
Stateside, very nice, and not hit by a tariff, hopefully.
Hopefully not.
I know one year we stumbled across AVNation, I think. They make custom sound panels.
Oh, okay, yep.
Again, very artistic and super, super cool. And we were able to use them in a couple of studios where they wanted something more than 2-inch foam, 2-inch wedge or pyramid. And we're like, oh, those are cool. We'll pay way more for those. And I'll always let them pay more. All right, let's hit our last story of the day quickly. This comes to us from hiddenwires.co.uk. Decoding the multi-room audio industry, 8 smart home trends to watch. The 8 they talked on were streaming, the wow factor, wireless, high-res, bespoke sound, AI, integration, and lastly, shallow aesthetics, to Mark's chagrin. Mark, let me start with you on this. I don't see multi-room changing much at all. I don't see much evolution in multi-room. Sonos was that evolution. I don't know what's coming next that is going to get people excited. Again, they touched on some interesting trends, but what is AI doing for us in multi-room audio? Again, I'm not railing on the article. I'm waiting for more. What do you see here?
Yeah, to me, the article was like nothing new. It was just kind of a recap of what has driven multi-room over decades. It's a great category. We sell a lot of it. The biggest thing is, Todd and I were discussing a little bit of this recently, was it's really, how do you get it into more rooms in a home? That's really the big opportunity for us. You know, a bunch of years ago, we went into invisible speakers, and that was a great opportunity because it's a more expensive item, so therefore there's more profit. But there's not, and you're right, since Sonos, like wireless audio, there hasn't been a major innovation. Sonos there's still sort of the 800-pound gorilla in the room. That's what I compare any new product against. Mm-hmm. So, and others are, doing it better over the last 6 to 8 months, of course, but we won't go there, Matt. We've had plenty of those discussions.
We could.
Very true. All right, Todd, wrap this up for me. The one thing that was not on this list that I was expecting to see was Dante, because it allows multi-room across an incredibly large landscape, and in again, larger properties, shall we say.
That's a great point.
Is there much room for innovation in multi-room? Like, I know this is kind of the same question to Mark, but what's missing that you're looking for? Is it high res? Does the customer want high res? Do they care?
Not really. There are going to be clients that are going to care about that. Like the point you brought across was the aha moment. We're talking about Dante. I think that's the best product that's been released in a long time for audio, especially distribution, because it makes my life a lot easier, because you only need network switches in order to communicate, especially if you have, like, we have a project right now that we've been working on, that this gentleman owns acres and acres of land and owns 8 properties on that land. So between every home, we just run a fiber cable to the next network switch, and he's able to continue his experience from the main house, say all the way to, house 8. If he's having a party, they tend to use the lands as they're walking home to home, gym, whatever it is that they're going to, and the music experience never changes, which to me was a big wow moment. For the distribution side of things, people have talked about Josh AI. They've hinted about that. It's a good product. I tried it out a few times. I haven't yet found a way where it's seamless integration. I use the ChatGPT protocol more on it than I do anything else for it, because it just hasn't worked for me. But I'm hoping more for that kind of side of things, where AI has gone smarter and smarter and kind of talk about, what you're looking for in an experience, in a sense, music wise. Like, I'm looking for more bands that sound like, Guns N' Roses, but without, a whiny singer. And then it kind of giving you suggestions that actually make sense based upon the music that you're currently playing. Not like, Apple Music, yet out of nowhere you'll be listening to Guns N' Roses. Somehow it gives you Tupac, a couple songs later. I'm like, how'd that happen? That's really not custom fitted towards my needs. But for the distribution side of things, I think the Dante is the future. I use it on every project, but that also requires more networking knowledge in order to get involved with it. But, I think the future of it is going to be the AI, the artificial intelligence, and how it's kind of more of a question to get put into, music profiling, playlist, and listening.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap it up there. Thank you both so much for joining us. Todd, if people want to connect with you, learn more about the Source Home Theater, where can they do that?
They can head to my website at www.thesourcehometheater.com.
W. Very nice. Mark, my friend, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Home Theater Advisors, where can they do that?
Again, the best is hometheateradvisors.com, and they can email me, Mark, at hometheateradvisors.com.
Thank you both again for joining us. Thank you for joining us as well. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter, X, or most other social platforms. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry. What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is Erin Marmoran of EdTech. The world of higher ed AV is growing rapidly. That's why each month we hear from the best and brightest from colleges and universities all over the U.S. Check out EdTech on avnation.tv or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.